The family home that became a death trap. 3 people dead, one just 10 years old, killed as flames tore through this property at Hinton Brook. From missing to murdered, the body of a Dural mum found dumped in bushland. Calling in the troops, the Defence Force redeployed to aged care facilities as a fresh COVID wave takes hold. The state's pre-election battleground, the fight to floodproof Sydney's northwest. Plus, Josh Addo-Carr stars as the Bulldogs show Cameron Ciraldo what he could be working with if he joins Canterbury.
This is 9 News with Peter Overton.
Good evening. We begin tonight with the saddest of stories. A fierce house fire in the city's southwest has claimed the lives of 3 people, including a 10-year-old boy, and left 2 firefighters in hospital. And it's been revealed the family could have been saved if they had a working smoke alarm.
By the time neighbours spotted the flames, it was too late.
I heard a loud bang, but I thought it was just like a lot of smoke from the back. The flames were pretty high.
I looked from the bathroom window and I saw the big flames. And I really cried. I worried for them, that we are in one community.
A Vietnamese family of 6 inside their 2-storey Hinton Brook home consumed.
Crackling, a lot of bangs.
The 2 adults and child upstairs had no idea what was starting down below. Unforgiving flames climbing upwards from the garage. The 3 family members had no chance, trapped by fire as they slept. Pulled out by rattled emergency crews just before 6 a.m.
I can report that 2 persons died here at this scene today. A woman in her 60s and another woman in her 40s.
First responders forced to take on a near impossible fight.
They had a raging house fire on arrival. With no regard to their own safety, they made entry. They heard that there were persons missing.
Paramedics working to save the young boy, delivering CPR on the roadside, taking him to the Children's Hospital at Westmead. By lunchtime, confirming the worst.
The hospital was waiting for us. They did everything they could. Unfortunately, the child succumbed to their injuries.
3 others managing to escape as desperate neighbours joined the fight.
There was one garden hose being held on the front garage. The occupant next door, he tried very bravely to try and make entry.
A firefighter taken to hospital suffering an electric shock, another injuring his back after falling through the unstable floor. The fire has left the house so unsound, investigators say working out what happened here will take some time. Officials tonight confirming the family home had no working smoke alarms inside. The latest in a winter that's left a deadly mark, 13 house fire deaths, already 9 more than last year.
Our people will be impacted. A 3-person fatality is devastating. The message you must hear today as you listen to the news is to have a working smoke alarm in your home and save your families.
This is not how I wanted to spend my morning. It is tragic. Anyone that's not feeling it right now, I don't know how human they would be.
And 9's Ruth Wynne-Williams joins me from Concord Hospital. Ruth, how are the survivors doing tonight?
Pete, right now doctors are closely monitoring the progress of a man in his 40s. He was brought here to Concord Hospital and is right now in a critical condition. A woman was brought here too. She's in her 60s. She is stable tonight. And another woman was taken to Liverpool Hospital. She's in her late 30s and Pete, she is also stable tonight. This devastated family now finds itself at the centre of what will be a long and complicated investigation. Right now, Pete, the cause of all this trauma, what sparked this blaze, is unknown. Pete?
All right, Ruth, thank you. She'd been missing for days in Sydney's northwest, and then an awful discovery. A mother of 2 found murdered and dumped in bushland at Dural. Her partner tonight behind bars.
Shireen Kumar, business owner, model, a mother and an animal lover.
We used to see the lady walking around with her dog, with her 3, I think she had 2 or 3 kids. She was a wonderful lady. She used to always say hello.
A missing person case became a murder investigation late yesterday when Shireen's body was found in bushland at Dural.
It's a terrible thing to happen to anyone.
And all day forensic officers combed the area looking for any evidence. But already police believe they have got the killer. Last night, detectives arrested Shireen's 37-year-old partner, Vincent Carlino. He was at the couple's home, just 2 kilometres from where her body was found. When Shireen Kumar was first reported missing, Vincent Carlino told police he was extremely worried. 5 days on, he was in Parramatta Court this morning in handcuffs, charged with her murder. Carlino told police Shireen had vanished Wednesday night while dressed in her pyjamas. No suggestion from his lawyer as to how he will plead.
Clearly these are very serious matters and it's still very early on in the proceedings, and once the matters flesh out further we'll take a certain course.
The pair ran a dog walking business. Shireen was also in demand as a model. Her work appeared in several magazines here and overseas. There was no mention in court as to why Carlino allegedly carried out the murder. Mark Burrows, 9 News.
Usually protecting the public, police found themselves in trouble when one of their patrol cars went up in flames today. Firefighters rushed to put out the blaze on Dewar Street near Campsey's Anzac Square before the flames took hold of ammunition in the boot. It's believed a mechanical issue is to blame. No one was injured. The COVID crisis in our country's aged care sector is rapidly escalating. Now more than 1,000 outbreaks nationwide. The government is on high alert, officially deciding not to send representatives to the Commonwealth Games as it prepares to ramp up military support in the sector.
The Commonwealth Games, without doubt, the global sporting event in which Australia dominates.
Another gold medal for Australia.
Just 4 days out from the opening ceremony in Birmingham, 9 News can reveal there will be no federal minister attending this year's Games.
It's a decision I haven't taken lightly, and in all conscience I couldn't leave the country with aged care facing the current winter wave.
Now the Albanese government will be represented by Olympic and Commonwealth Games legend Kieran Perkins.
We work very closely together. We'll be over there representing us, and I think he knows a thing or two about getting elite athletes through Games.
Currently, there are more than 1,000 active outbreaks of COVID-19 in aged care facilities across the country. As of Friday, the national data shows 6,118 active cases among residents. And to make matters worse, 3,419 staff are off due to the virus.
We have a rate of infection that's now back up with what it was at the beginning of February, and that's going to have a significant impact on the availability of staff.
The outgoing Morrison government in February deployed ADF troops to give the aged care sector a hand, a deal that expires in September. However, 9 News can reveal that Annika Wells will tonight meet with ADF hierarchy to keep troops in aged care.
We're looking at extending it even further. Let's call a spade here, Peter. It is an extreme and desperate measure that the ADF is in Australian aged care.
Just how many troop numbers will be deployed is being discussed in tonight's meetings. Peter Fegan, 9 News.
And there's also concern Australia is facing a surge in long COVID cases, which could have serious and lasting impacts on the community and put further strain on our hospitals. Sophie Walsh has more.
Researchers investigating long COVID in Australia say 5% of people who get COVID could develop the condition. That means of the 9 million Australians who've had the virus since the start of the pandemic, more than 450,000 would develop long COVID. But if we weren't vaccinated, it's estimated that number would be double. The World Health Organisation says someone has the condition if they have symptoms 3 months after having COVID and they last at least 2 months. Common symptoms include fatigue, shortness of breath, brain fog and changes to taste and smell. Those symptoms could follow immediately on from the initial illness or relapse over time. And studies have found women are 22% more likely to be diagnosed with the condition than men. Health experts say it's more important than ever now. If you haven't had COVID, do everything you can to avoid it.
Sophie, thank you. After spreading to dozens of countries in a matter of weeks, the World Health Organisation has declared monkeypox a global health emergency. It's the second time they've made such an announcement in 2 years.
It's the highest alarm the World Health Organisation can sound.
The global monkeypox outbreak represents a public health emergency of international concern.
The declaration intended to stimulate a global response to the once rare disease. The last time the WHO made such a call was in 2020 for COVID-19.
We have an outbreak that has spread around the world rapidly through new modes of transmission, about which we understand too little.
More than 16,800 cases of monkeypox are spread across 75 countries, the threat deemed high in Europe. More than 2,800 cases in America, 41 in Australia, including 22 in New South Wales and 15 in Victoria. 5 deaths have been recorded worldwide so far.
This is a precaution. We don't need to be alarmed. It's all about enhancing surveillance as a preventative measure.
The outbreak is largely among men in the LGBTQI community, but the Centres for Disease Control identified 2 cases in American children. Long lines for the vaccine stretching out in some US states. Designed for its more severe cousin smallpox, access has been limited by supply issues.
People are becoming aware and nervous about it, trying to get vaccines.
The World Health Organization warned that the vaccine can take up to 3 weeks to become effective. So with no immediate immunity, on its own, it's not enough to stop the disease in its tracks.
In the United States, Alison Petrowski, 9 News.
The Albanese government will head into its first week of Parliament with plans to reform aged care and legislate ambitious cuts to carbon emissions. It also aims to gut the powers of the building industry watchdog and deliver a right for workers to claim 10 days paid domestic and family violence leave.
The Labor family gathered at the Lodge before the first sitting of the 47th Parliament, and its leader says he's raring to go.
We'll be introducing at least 18 pieces of legislation in our first week.
That will include laws to deliver on the recommendations of the Aged Care Royal Commission and a suite of other election promises.
The legislation on our emissions target, 10 days paid domestic and family violence leave, establish Jobs and Skills Australia.
And the government plans to gut the powers of the coalition-era building industry watchdog.
As of Tuesday, the ABCC in its powers will be pulled back to the bare legal minimum.
The pledge to legislate a 43% reduction in emissions by 2030 will be hotly debated, with the Greens demanding an end to all new coal and gas mining.
We need more ambitious emissions reduction, but I would say as a community independent, my approach is possibly more collaborative about working with government.
The coalition will oppose the move.
We're seeing record levels of renewables coming into our grid, the highest level of household solar in the world in Australia, and it needs backup, it needs dispatchable generation to complement it.
And Labor will also come under increasing pressure to extend the 22 cents a litre cut to the fuel tax.
Because that's going to add to the cost of living for our families here who drive a lot.
The petrol excise holiday is set to end in September. Chris Ullman, 9 News.
Fields turned to mud pits, players covered in brown sludge from head to toe. Winter sports competitions suffered over the weekend as wet weather wreaked havoc across Sydney. Waterlogged ovals meant hundreds of games were cancelled. Those that did go ahead were muddy affairs. Well, the exciting return of Live Music Festival has gone to mud, with attendees at Byron Bay's Splendor in the Grass trudging home in disappointment. Now the festival organisers have been left to pick up the pieces of a disastrous event.
A heaving herd of festival goers who just want to go home. These were the queues for buses out of Byron Bay's Splendor in the Grass last night, some waiting more than 7 hours.
Everyone was just hurting, people pushing.
No one could sit down because it's like ankle deep mud.
3 years since the last event, it's been a horror comeback. Plagued by wet weather, the grounds turned to sludge. Campers stuck in mud, day one scrapped. Finally, yesterday spelled a better Splendor ahead. Last night, hope was lost.
Not a happy camper.
Jessie and Alana, who is 5 months pregnant, left early after they couldn't get water at the bar.
It was sad and embarrassing because we all wanted to come back to live music and come back to festivals, but that wasn't the way to do it.
There was no clear organisation, everyone was everywhere.
Festival organisers denied our request for interview today, instead responding to the backlash via social media. They say a shortage of bus drivers is what led to the debacle, and that 90% of punters were off-site within an hour and a half of gates closing at 2 a.m.
That's just flat out gaslighting. And you just have to look at the videos on socials, there's no way the numbers match what they've said.
Some jumping in any mode of transport in sight just to get out.
Some people were getting on the last bus at like 6 a.m.
Organisers say extra bus services are being secured to avoid more mayhem tonight. Hayley Francis, 9 News.
Australia's swim team has arrived in Birmingham in the UK, gearing up for the start of the Commonwealth Games. The swimming stars are hoping to repeat the success of Tokyo, our greatest ever Olympic performance, as questions remain over the ousting of one of the team.
A sea of green and gold from Australia's swim team. The Dolphins ready to make their mark in Birmingham.
There is a high expectation on this team in particular at the Commonwealth Games, and we look forward to that.
Those expectations were set at the Tokyo Olympics, which were Australia's most successful of all time. Stars like Ariane Titmus, Zach Stubblety-Cook and Kaylee McEwen are all looking to repeat last year's success, as is Emma McKeon, who is now rarely far from the side of her partner, singer and Gabe's debutante, Cody Simpson. The team has spent an unusually long time in Europe ahead of the Games, from the World Championships to the training camp in France, 6 weeks away so far.
It's a long time away from home for a lot of these athletes, and rising up and competing at an international level and then being able to kind of relax and then come back up, I think has been a challenge.
And the team boat was rocked when Isaac Cooper was sent home over what were called well-being challenges, including the use of medication. The 18-year-old posted that he needs to address his mental health, adding his misuse of medication was not banned substances.
We've been in touch. We've all been in touch. We have a group working with him, an ongoing group to support him. Very clear reminder to our team that, we have high standards and we have high expectations, and going forward, if something's brought to our attention, we'll act on that.
For now, the team has 6 days to settle in and prepare for competition and see if the gamble on staying overseas for this long pays off.
Outcomes like medals, we want to do we want to get as many as we can. Obviously, we're not going to be, we're not going to have a quota, but we definitely want to get as many as we can.
In Birmingham, Brett McLeod, 9 News.
Let's have a check-in on today's weather. Good evening, Amber.
Good evening to you, Pete. It has been a partly cloudy day with breaks of sunshine, and although some grey clouds moved in around lunchtime, we only saw a few sprinkles of rain, if anything. It was very warm for this time of year, reaching 20 degrees in the city. That is 4 degrees above average. Our west dipping to 7 this morning before warming up to a top of 20.5 degrees. I have some good news for you. There is not much rain around this week. A few light showers, but nothing torrential, and we can look forward to some sunshine tomorrow. I'll be back with the full forecast a little later, Pete.
Amber, thank you. Childcare rates across Sydney are already well above the national average, and now families are being told to brace for another 2 possible price rises this year. Deep below Tokyo, the Premier tours the underground silos built to funnel excess water away from the city. Is this the plan to floodproof the city's northwest? He saved 5 people from a burning building, the pizza delivery boy, who's about to get a very impressive tip. And the 2 little girls who battled the odds together, beating death and winning a lifetime of friendship.